This is a story about friends, flying, and freedom, and how that combination has helped honor veterans and their families for nearly a decade. Since 2010, Chippewa Manor has been remembering veterans by including a missing man formation flyover at the conclusion of its annual Veterans Salute. The flyover provides a powerful visual tribute. Its origins are nearly a century old, dating back to the first use of planes in combat. It's a somber, moving ritual, and it's one that a group of Chippewa Falls-based aviators have adopted as their way of saying thank you. Among those who performed the flyover are local pilots Mike Pope, Joe Bovey, Hal Whiten, Rick Frederick, and Doug Apland. Men with diverse backgrounds and experiences who share a common passion for flying.
I'm a heavy equipment operator, have been all my life. About 30 years ago, Rose and I started our own business, and I've been an excavating contractor ever since.
I just retired this last December. I finished up working at urgent care in Mayo for about 10 years. Before that, it was family medicine and ERs.
I grew up here on the farm, was born in 1960, pretty much lived in the area. Went to school locally, didn't go on after high school, ended up working for a used car dealership and got some experience there, actually paid to learn. And went on my own in 1989.
I grew up in Minnesota, went to St. Thomas College, played football, wrestling, got into financial planning with IDS at the time in 1981. And the company's changed names a few times, but I've been with the same company and been here in Chippewa for 25 years.
I'm retired. I was in the manufacturing business for the past 14 years. Before that, I was self-employed. I had my own auto repair shop, and my hobbies are what I'm standing in front of.
Well, as long as I can remember, I've been crazy about airplanes, building models when I was 4. We had trains, but airplanes was what really excited my brother and me. He was 5 years older. And we used to talk about, we'd go to the moon if it was a one-way trip.
Been flying since 90, when was it? 93, 94, I started flying, so 25 years or so. And been an airplane buff all my life.
I started flying in 1972 and got hooked on it, and I've been flying ever since.
I was around it quite a bit as a young guy. The airport was just across the field from us, and seeing the airplanes and flying with my father quite a bit was, interesting. And at the same time, I wanted to conquer something that not just anybody could do, and so it kind of urged me to, like I said, I didn't get a college degree, but I got my pilot's license, and that was a challenge for me.
I got my license in 1987, and I started flying with a friend of mine, Joe Bovey, before that, and spent 21 years in the Civil Air Patrol Squadron in Chippewa.
I've traveled a lot around different parts of the country and seen different landscapes. The people that you run into at the airports, a bad day at work, you can go up and just it gives you a freedom of just no attachment.
The freedom, and especially in the United States here, I mean, the fact that you can climb in the airplane on a little grass strip here and fly to Miami or Los Angeles or wherever, and on your own is amazing.
I can't think that there's anything else like it. There's nothing else that I've experienced that's like it. What do I like the best about it is when you're up there, it's never 5 o'clock. You're never worried about what's going on in business, what's going on at home, what did the stock market do today. You don't think about any of that stuff. You just think about flying. What do I have to do next?
It's about the most fun you can have with your clothes on, as they say. I think it sharpens your senses. It sharpens your mind. You see things you don't otherwise see. It gives you perspective.
For this group of friends, the Missing Man Formation is something more than just a performance. It's a way to remember the sacrifices of all those who served.
The veterans are such a big part of our heritage and our history. It's just we felt a good way to pay them back.
When you do this, you're not just remembering one guy, you're remembering everybody. You have to remember that they all signed that blank check to Uncle Sam saying, my life's on the line. So this is a way of remembering all the veterans.
Oh, it's just a personal way of saying thank you to those who served.
I didn't do any military, and to me it was a way to give it back and appreciate what they did for us.
There's a huge sacrifice, whether you go to war or not.
Something to just show the veterans that we're thinking about them.
The Missing Man Flyover usually features a quartet of planes traveling in finger formation, an innovation of some of history's first military aviators.
In World War I, airplanes fought kind of singly and maybe once in a while in pairs. At the start of World War II, the Americans, especially the American Navy, the American Air Force, and the British flew in what they called a Vic formation, a V of 3.
Well, flying formation takes a lot of attention, and the English were flying in this V all the time, and they were just looking around for the bad guys. They were getting shot up by the Germans. The Germans were flying in figure 4. You know, the lead and his wingman, and then the second lead and his wingman. So you got somebody watching your 6 o'clock.
So as they started losing guys and needed some kind of a commemoration, came the Missing Man formation, which is basically the ring finger pulls up and away.
And in a finger 4, so you can see the configuration, and then the number 2 guy pulls up my ring finger, and then that space stays.
You got a finger 4 like this. The lead and the slot is here, and the last guy is here, and the slot guy pulls up and turns to the west, like the Missing Man, and it's gone west.
There was a saying in World War I, they didn't want to talk about somebody that had actually died. The euphemism was he's gone west. So the Missing Man usually turns west.
I'm the lead plane, and I have 2 guys off to my right and 1 guy off to my left.
I'm the 4th guy, so I'm the pinky. So it's usually a right hand, so this is the lead, and this is the guy who pulls up for the Missing Man like I showed, and this is Rick Frederick, he's number 2. The lead, the Missing Man is number 3, and I'm the 4th guy. So I'm kind of the tail end Charlie. And so when Mike's gone, then I help demonstrate that there's still a gap there.
I'm going to replace Mike Pope because his plane is down now. I think he flew right slot, which would be second to the right behind the leader.
Flying the slot is the hardest position because, you know, if you're one of the guys out on the wings and you get a little bit uncomfortable or you get a little bit out of control, you can always slide out to the side a little further. But I've got Hal over on my side and, you know, Joe in front of me. So flying the slot's the hardest part.
And we get it at altitude and get our formation right and go over the top, and the Missing Man goes up and turns west.
The Flyover became a fixture of Chippewa Manor's Veterans Salute thanks to the efforts of Rick Frederick's wife, Rose, who helps organize the event and serves as the pilot's ground contact.
We had done it for some baseball games locally and things like that, and then somehow we connected up with Rose, who said, could you guys do that for Veterans Day?
You know, I have seen the Missing Man formation being done at certain events, and I knew it was such a somber occasion, and I thought it would be very fitting for our event.
We wanted to differentiate our program in a way that really said, hey, we're putting a lot of thought and energy and effort into this. Lots of people have attended Veterans Day ceremonies from their earliest elementary school days to beyond. But how many ceremonies have a Missing Man formation flyover?
Flying in tight formation for more than a few minutes can be very difficult. It takes practice and planning to pull off, and it helps to have a little assistance from technology.
Pre-flight is just where it is and where we're going to kind of loiter, because we launch with lots of time and we kind of cruise around and even practice.
We all meet at Rosenbaum, and then we form up there, and Joe's our lead guy, and he uses an iPad, and which is really slick.
I have some equipment that I use to give us the right time and keep us on course. I have, you know, a GPS which, you know, I can use on my ForeFlight and has a nice map and everything is timed, and it makes it easier other than looking back and forth to, you know, to keep us on course.
Rose has a time when we have to go over. She says, can you back it up a minute? Well, we just move over a little bit and go out a little bit further.
I stay in communication with the pilots, mainly Joe, and he'll call in and say, you know, we're so many minutes out. What is it looking like? Are we going to be, on time? Do you want to keep that time frame? Do you want us to speed it up? Sometimes they can slow it down, but we try to keep it right on track.
The leader knows where we're going. Joe does a great job. He's got his iPad. He can figure out based on air travel and wind speed and things like that, right to the second when we want to get to the target.
The hardest thing is getting over the spot at the right time. And that's up to Joe, and he does a great job on it, I'll tell you what.
You're constantly working your throttle. You have to stare at the configuration. You're not looking where you're going or the ground. You have to stare at that. You have to have target fixation of the guys that you're keying on, and to stay in that place, you're constantly adding and subtracting throttle. The earlier you find that you need it, the less you have to give. But it's very challenging. You're just back and forth all the time on the throttle.
Got a line of sight there, and you just try to hold it. And some days it's easy, if it's rock solid smooth. Other days we've gone over where you guys were, we're rocking and rolling.
Everybody has their eyes on the guy in front of them. So I'm looking at Joe, Hal's looking at me, Rick's looking at Joe. So Joe or somebody else, it's usually Joe, has to call the pull-up.
And so the concentration is intense for the last probably 3, 4, 5 minutes.
Well, you are busy because it's actually very taxing. It looks like we're pretty loose when I've seen the videos, but man, it feels like you're just about to hit each other. It feels very tight up there.
While they seek no recognition, their anonymous participation year after year has not gone unappreciated.
What I first and foremost want the pilots to hear from us is thank you. Thank you for the hours, the time, the energy each of you puts in every year for this event. And each of those pilots play an integral part and a very unique part in the ceremony and salute that Chippewa Manor does every year.
They're passionate about flying and aviation in general, and I think they all have a great appreciation for what our veterans have done for us, what they've given, what they've sacrificed, not only themselves but their families.
The men who fly the Missing Man formation do so on their own time and without compensation. They do it to honor veterans and their families and to help us all remember the price of freedom. The fact that they can do that as a group of friends, engaging in something they love to do, is a big part of why they fly.
I guess after we disperse, it's like, wow, that was great. I hope it's as good for them as it was for us.
Once we do the pull-up, and you kind of look back, once I don't have to worry about, we kind of slack off a little bit and I can look back. Then, it sends shivers down your back. It's just a good feeling.
It's just a physical representation, just like taps or the folding of the flag. We're just trying to give our own little 2 cents worth of honoring when that moment happens, when that guy pulls up.
Well, I hope they realize that the veterans are an important part of our past, and there are people that want to honor them every year on their day. And I hope when people see the flyover, they realize that veterans still hold an important part.
It's giving back to people that did a lot for us and made it able that we're able to do this.
And if we can bring some joy and some happiness to the veterans down below, that means a lot.
That's the reason we do it, is to say thank you. We're not doing it so that we can go out and show off. We're doing it because we want to give something back to those veterans and to let them know that their sacrifices weren't forgotten.